I know what I saw that night. I saw it. I thought I was either dreaming or having some kind of hallucination.
That thing must have been at least 8 foot tall, maybe taller. Very athletic looking, very muscular. I would say the arms were 3 feet across.
And I seen this thing crossing the road, and it looked like it was probably 7.5 feet tall, maybe. And I mean, this thing was huge.
And welcome back to Squatch Ranger Files, episode 65, Thermal Eyes and River Shadows. We've expanded the show to the Spotify for Creators platform, and we are very excited to be here. Spotify for Creators helps the show reach Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, and many more. We hope to grow our audience and are able to continue to bring you the latest Bigfoot reports from around the country. The show has also been added to the Amazon Music app under the podcast section. We are also very excited to be a part of the Amazon community. If you are a new listener to the show, welcome! You are now an official Squatch Ranger. Your duties include have an open mind, ask questions, trust but confirm, and always seek the truth. Thanks for joining the show. If you're enjoying the episodes, make sure to follow Squatch Ranger on TikTok, where I post short clips, report highlights, and behind-the-scenes research updates. I've officially launched the Squatch Ranger online t-shirt store over on TeePublic. If you're into Bigfoot, cryptids, and that deeper side of belief, these designs were made with you in mind. It's a perfect blend of faith, mystery, and the Squatch life. These designs are available on high-quality shirts, hoodies, stickers, and more, with multiple color options and comfortable fits. Whether you're out in the woods, at a conference, or just repping Squatch culture day to day, there's something there for you. Your support helps keep Squatch Ranger Files going and allows me to continue bringing you real reports, real witnesses, and real encounters. That's teepublic.com, search Squatch Ranger. Or, for a direct link to my t-shirt store, I'll also provide my store's link in the show notes and the description of this video. And as always, thank you for supporting the show. And because of your support, I've made my first t-shirt sale on TeePublic. I earned my first sale badge. So once again, thank you to all my viewers. It really does mean a lot. If you're enjoying the show and you feel led to support it, you don't have to buy a t-shirt. There's a PayPal tip jar and Cash App QR code on the screen right now. This is totally optional. Think of it like buying me a cup of coffee while I'm digging through reports and chasing down those stories. Either way, I appreciate you being here. And finally, folks, before we get back into eyewitness reports and heavy forest vibes, it's time for a little segment, a brand new segment, I like to call the Sasquatch Bulletin Board. Memes, sightings, and weirdness. Where we take a look at Bigfoot culture, Bigfoot memes, and the kind of Squatch-related content that makes you stop scrolling and go, yeah, we've gone too far. So the first thing I want to share is this absolute gem making the rounds online. It's a post from a group called Karens for Sasquatch. And it's a PSA telling people not to leave their Sasquatch outside during the winter storm. Now listen, that alone is funny, but what really gets me is how seriously it's written. Like somewhere out there, there's a Facebook admin who genuinely believes there's folks saying, yeah, my Bigfoot usually just hangs out on the porch, but it's getting cold. And honestly, that tracks. Because we've all heard those eyewitness accounts where someone claims the Bigfoot comes by their house every day, knocks on the door, steals apples, watches TV through the window. And now apparently, during snowstorms, those same witnesses are expected to bring their Sasquatch inside, dry him off, and maybe give him a blanket and some hot cocoa. I just love the idea of a Bigfoot standing at the front door while Karen yells, "I told you! No wet fur on the couch!" Alright, next up, we've got these Bigfoot snow angels. This one actually hits close to home because I made these with my family on a snow day. We were sledding, playing outside, just having fun, and then I thought, you know what this snow needs? Cryptids. So I grabbed my Bigfoot silhouette sign and made Bigfoot snow angels, and I've got to say, this might be the first physical evidence that Bigfoot not only exists, but enjoys winter recreation. Somewhere out there's a Sasquatch researcher writing in a notebook, "Subject appears to lie on back, arms extended, possibly celebrating snowfall." Morale is high. Honestly, if Bigfoot is real, I hope this is what he's doing during snowstorms. Just vibing, making snow angels, and not throwing rocks at anyone for once. And finally, this one might be my favorite. A buddy of mine sent this from a hunter's group. And what you're looking at is a stuffed Sasquatch wall mount. Not a photo, not a joke illustration, an actual hang it above the fireplace Sasquatch. And I just imagine walking into someone's cabin and seeing that on the wall. Not a deer, not an elk, just a Bigfoot staring into your soul. You'd have to ask, so what's the story here? And the guy would say, "Oh, that? Yeah, Squatch. Took him back in '09. Wouldn't stop knocking on my porch." Look, I don't know who approved this, I don't know who made it, and I don't know who bought it, but Bigfoot researchers everywhere just felt a disturbance in the forest. And that's going to wrap up this week's segment of the Sasquatch Bulletin Board. Memes, sightings, and weirdness. Proof that Bigfoot culture is alive, well, and only gets weirder. If you've got memes, news, or just absolutely unhinged Squatch content, send it my way. You might hear it on a future episode. Alright, let's get back to the show. That brings us to listener comments from previous episodes. This comment comes from Squatch Ranger Files episode 64. This one comes from JZ ACA Taco 8254, and it says, "My name is Jonas from Chicago, Illinois. I'm going to tell you my story about my first encounter. It was about 12:22 a.m. on October 12th, 2025. I was preparing a movie night with my brother, cousin, and her friend. We were all watching How to Train Your Dragon, until I turned and looked on the left side and saw this large, shadow head figure with glowing blue eyes behind the window door. It was a hairy-covered like being, kind of like a primate or an ape. It was looking at me. I just freeze. And then I look at it for 2 minutes and 35 seconds. I didn't want to move a muscle until my cousin friend saw something at the window. Then my cousin and brother saw it too. I told everyone, I said, 'Do not open the door, something's outside.' But my brother opened the door. He said, 'Hello, is anyone there?' But whatever it was gone. I believe I just encountered a young Sasquatch looking at me at the window in Rockford, Illinois. But my cousin friend said it was a ghost, and I said no, it was a Bigfoot. I told my brother to bring his notebook so I can draw what I saw in the window." Alright, I'd like to take a moment to respond to Jonas, who wrote in about that really intense experience that happened in Rockford, Illinois. Jonas, first off, thank you for being willing to share that. I know it's not easy to talk about an encounter like that, especially when it happens right at your own home. What really stood out to me in your account is the setting and the behavior you described. You mentioned this happened late at night. You're inside watching a movie, and then you notice a large, shadowy, hair-covered figure with glowing eyes looking in through the window. That detail is important, because I can tell you, you are far from alone in that. Over the years, I've read and heard a surprising number of encounter reports where people describe something very similar. A figure coming up onto a porch, standing near a door or window, and seemingly observing the people inside. It's one of those patterns that shows up again and again in these stories. Now, I took a look at Rockford on a map, and something immediately jumped out at me. The Rock River runs right through that area. And river systems are incredibly important when we're talking about possible Sasquatch movement. Rivers provide water, natural travel corridors, and cover. If something wanted to move quietly through an area without being seen, following a river makes a lot of sense. On top of that, Rockford and the surrounding areas have pockets of forest and wooded land that could offer concealment and access to wildlife. So from a purely environmental standpoint, the area checks a lot of boxes we see in other encounter locations. You also mentioned that multiple people in the room noticed something. Your cousin's friend saw movement, and then your cousin and brother saw it as well. That's another important detail. Shared experiences don't automatically explain what something was, but they do tell us that something unusual was happening that night. Whether someone believes it was a young Sasquatch, something else entirely, or has another explanation, what matters is that the experience was real to you, and it clearly left an impression. So Jonas, I appreciate you taking the time to write in and even sketch what you saw. Encounters like this are why we do this show, and why it's important for people to have a place where they can talk about these experiences without being laughed off. Thanks again for sharing your story, and if anything else ever happens, you know where to find us. Alright, if you or a family member or someone you know has an encounter story, please share that report with us. You can send your Bigfoot encounters to squatchranger@gmail.com. I would love to feature your story on this program. It's now time for the Squatch Ranger Files Episode 65, Thermal Eyes and River Shadows Breakdown. This episode features 3 different Bigfoot encounters, spanning modern thermal footage, historical secondhand testimony, and a chilling daylight encounter deep in the Montana wilderness. Each case escalates in intensity and proximity, offering listeners a broad look at how these encounters continue to follow similar patterns across time and geography. We begin episode 65 with a modern investigation involving thermal imaging that captures an unidentified bipedal figure moving through a rural area of Drew County. The incident escalates when rocks are thrown, a behavior frequently reported in Class B encounters. This case raises questions about territorial behavior, intelligence, and how these creatures react to human presence, especially when observed through modern technology. Next, we travel back several decades to Steamboat Ridge, where a second-hand account describes a strange and unsettling encounter in the rugged Colorado backcountry. Though historical in nature, the details align closely with modern reports. Remote terrain, limited visibility, and a presence that made its existence known without fully revealing itself. This case highlights how long these encounters have been happening and how consistent the patterns remain over time. The episode closes with a high-intensity Class A encounter from the Fisher Ridge drainage in northwest Montana. In broad daylight, witnesses report seeing a large, unknown creature that appeared to shadow or escort them through the area while issuing powerful vocalizations. The proximity, visibility, and duration of this encounter make it one of the most compelling cases featured in episode 65. Why this episode matters. Episode 65 showcases the full spectrum of Bigfoot encounters, from heat signatures and thrown rocks to historical ridgeline sightings and close-range daylight interactions. Despite different decades, locations, and circumstances, each case reinforces the same unsettling question. Whatever is out there, it's aware of us, and it's been watching for a long time. Number 1. Man catches creature on thermal camera. Nobro case file 25OS0173DR. Drew County, Arkansas. Class B, rock throwing. The witnesses were camping in a wooded area near Rock Springs, Arkansas. During the night, the wife left the main campsite to use the restroom in the nearby woods. While she was away from the camp, she became alarmed when rocks were thrown in her direction from within the tree line. She did not see what was throwing the rocks, but described the activity as deliberate rather than random. Fearing for her safety, she immediately returned to the campsite and informed her husband of what had occurred. A friend who was camping with them was equipped with a thermal imaging camera. After hearing the wife's account, he moved to scan the area where she had been when the rocks were thrown. While observing through the thermal device, he detected a heat signature partially concealed behind a tree. The heat source appeared to be peeking around the tree before withdrawing from view. No vocalizations were reported at that time, and no further visual confirmation was made with the naked eye. The witnesses did not pursue the heat signature and remained at the campsite afterward. The incident left the group shaken, as they could not identify a known animal that would match the behavior observed through the thermal camera. Follow-up: NOBRO investigators report. A NOBRO investigator conducted a follow-up phone interview with the primary witnesses regarding a reported nighttime incident that occurred while the group was camping in a wooded area near Rock Springs, Drew County, Arkansas. The purpose of the interview was to clarify details surrounding the event, document environmental conditions, and assess possible explanations. According to the witness, the incident occurred after dark while the group was settled at their campsite. One female witness temporarily left the main camp area to use the restroom in the surrounding woods. While doing so, she experienced multiple rocks being thrown in her direction from within the tree line. The rocks were described as coming from different angles, but generally from the same wooded area, suggesting intentional targeting rather than natural falling debris. The witness did not observe a visible source for the thrown objects and reported no known animals in the immediate vicinity at that moment. Feeling threatened, she returned quickly to the campsite and reported the incident to the rest of the group. A second witness, who was camping with the group, had access to a thermal imaging device. After being informed of the rock-throwing incident, he scanned the area where the activity had occurred. During his scan, a heat signature was observed partially obscured behind a tree. The thermal image reportedly showed the heat source briefly leaning or peeking from behind the tree before retreating back out of view. No clear body shape or species identification could be determined from the thermal observation alone. No vocalizations, growls, or other sounds were reported during the thermal sighting. The group did not attempt to approach the area, and no further activity was observed for the remainder of the night. The witnesses chose to remain at the campsite and reported feeling uneasy following the event. Investigator assessment. Their reported behavior, specifically deliberate rock throwing combined with concealment and apparent observation from behind cover, is notable and not commonly associated with typical wildlife behavior in the area. While thermal equipment can sometimes produce ambiguous readings depending on distance, foliage, and temperature contrast, the witnesses involved expressed confidence that the heat source was not a known animal that they were familiar with. Due to the lack of physical evidence recovered, like tracks, clear imagery, or audio, this report remains unclassified beyond a suspicious interaction involving object throwing and a thermal anomaly. The consistency between witness accounts and the involvement of multiple observers adds credibility to the experience, though no definite identification can be made at this time. Number 2. The Steamboat Ridge Encounter, Squatch Ranger Files number CORC 2026017. Early 1990s. Routt County, Colorado. Class C, historical and second-hand account. Okay, I have been thinking about my dad a lot lately. So I want to tell you a story. And if you know me, and believe me to be honest, it's a story my dad told me one day in the mountains when I was 14 years old. Now, I'm not asking you to believe in something that you don't. But I believe, and I always will believe. He never talked about it to others, because he thought that would be foolish. So here it goes. You tell me what you think. First, my dad was an amazing outdoorsman. Hunted and fished all over the United States. On an elk hunting trip with me when I was 14, my first time being able to hunt elk with a rifle. I had been on one with Dad at 11, but I couldn't hunt yet. Anyway, we were up by Steamboat Springs, Colorado. We had been hunting a ridgeline for a day or two, and we had seen a few elk on this other bluff. So Dad was going to sit me on the ridge we had hunted and cross the small creek and hiked up on the other one, and he would come and get me in 3 hours. So, to be ready, in case the elk came back this way, he left for about 45 minutes, when all of a sudden he comes back sweating, ghost white, and shaking a bit. Now, I had never seen my dad, 6 foot and 220 pounds, look scared or shaken like this. So, of course, I was worried and scared. He said, "We gotta go right now." I said, "What's up, Dad?" He said, "Let's get out of this bottom and get to camp." So we did. On the way back to camp, he's looking back often. Once we were out in the open, in the aspens, he said, "Listen, I don't know exactly what I just saw, and I'm shaken and in disbelief. And I know you're worried. I'm sure we're fine." I said, "What is going on?" He said, "Bud, I've been in the mountains everywhere, and I've never been a believer. And I was crossing that creek, and when I heard a huge log break, and I got a bad smell, and I looked through brush at something I could see was looking at me, and from what I could see, it was huge and on 2 feet. I moved slowly, and it ran away making a ton of noise." He said, "I believe I just had a Bigfoot encounter." I said, "I didn't think you believed in that." He said, "I do now. I really do." So he then asked me not to make a big deal out of it or to tell anyone because he didn't like ridicule or anyone to doubt him. I promised him I wouldn't. Now, he's been gone for 28 years. I don't tell you this story now, but it's a day in memory of my dad who I always felt was invincible and not afraid of anything. When I saw him shaken and scared, I'm not sure if it was fear of the animal or fear of what he didn't know was real and in front of him. All I know is I believed him, and also know we never hunted that same pass again. From that day forward, I have always kept an open mind, and I am a believer. Follow up. Investigators report. The reporting witness provided this account as a personal memory involving his father, now deceased for approximately 28 years. The father was described as a lifelong hunter, fisherman, and outdoorsman who had traveled and hunted extensively across the United States. According to the witness, his father was not known to believe in Sasquatch or similar phenomena prior to this incident, and actively avoided discussing the encounter afterward due to fear of ridicule. During an elk hunting trip near Steamboat Springs, Colorado, the father and son had been hunting along a ridgeline for 1 to 2 days. Elk activity had been observed on an opposing bluff across a small creek. The father decided to leave the son positioned on the current ridge while he crossed the creek and ascended the opposite ridge to scout, advising he would return in approximately 3 hours. Approximately 45 minutes after departing, the father unexpectedly returned. The son immediately noted significant changes in his father's demeanor: profuse sweating, pale complexion, visible shaking, and a level of fear the son had never previously observed. The father urgently instructed that they leave the area immediately and return to camp, repeatedly looking back over his shoulder while moving through the terrain. Once they reached a more open aspen grove, the father stopped and explained what had occurred. Encounter details as reported by the father. While crossing the creek, the father heard the sound of a large log or tree breaking, producing a loud and unnatural crack. He simultaneously noticed a strong, foul odor, which he could not associate with known wildlife. Looking through dense brush, he observed a very large figure standing upright on 2 legs, partially obscured but clearly watching him. The size was described as unusually large compared to known animals in the region. The father slowly withdrew, at which point the figure fled rapidly, producing heavy footfalls and substantial noise consistent with a large bipedal animal moving through brush. No aggressive behavior was reported, but the encounter produced immediate fear and shock. The father stated clearly to his son that, despite never believing in such things previously, he believed he just experienced a Bigfoot or Sasquatch encounter. Aftermath. The father requested that the son not discuss the incident with others, expressing concern about being ridiculed or not believed. The son honored his request throughout his father's lifetime. Notably, the father never returned to hunt that specific pass or drainage again, despite continued hunting elsewhere. The reporting witness stated that this moment marked the first and only time he had ever seen his father, described as a strong, fearless, and invincible, visibly shaken and afraid. The witness expressed uncertainty whether his father's fear stemmed from the animal itself or from confronting something that fundamentally challenged his understanding of the natural world. Investigators' observations. The primary experiencer had extensive outdoor experience, reducing the likelihood of misidentification of common wildlife. Behavioral indicators: fear response, urgency to leave, long-term avoidance of the area, secrecy. These are all consistent with credible encounter reports. Environmental factors: creek bottoms, ridge systems, dense forest, and aspen stands align with known Sasquatch habitat models, particularly in Routt County and the greater Steamboat Springs region. Auditory, wood breaks, strong odors, and visual upright bipedal figure elements are commonly reported together in Sasquatch encounters. Conclusion: this report represents a credible, historical eyewitness account passed from father to son, marked by consistency, emotional weight, and long-term behavioral changes. While physical evidence is unavailable due to the passage of time, the testimony aligns strongly with known Sasquatch encounter patterns reported across Colorado and the Rocky Mountain region. This case is classified as unconfirmed but credible, based on witness reliability, environmental context, and congruence with similar reports. Number 3. The Fisher River Escort. Squatch Ranger Files number 85MT-LC011. 1985. Lincoln County, Montana. Class A, daytime sighting and vocalizations. Back in November of 1985, my wife and I were on a deer hunt with my in-laws in the mountains of northwest Montana. It was an early afternoon around 1 p.m. or so. We found a nice draw that looked good and decided to check it out. My wife and mother-in-law headed down an old skidder road that went up along the far side along the creek. My father-in-law went up the top of the ridge to the east, and I wound up at the bottom to the east of the creek. We figured we might push any animals we encountered to each other. The area had been logged several years earlier, and in places you could see up to 150 yards or so, and it has a lot of underbrush and patches of alderbrush. Where I was, I had a lot of windfalls to work my way through. The road that the girls went down, they said the road was fairly open, but the trees and brush were thick on either side and they couldn't see very far. The father-in-law was above me on the ridge, and we could catch a glimpse of each other from time to time. We were probably between 150 to 200 yards apart and 100 feet in elevation in difference. I was about a quarter of a mile from the pickup when I noticed that it's eerily quiet. Only sound was the water trickling in the creek. I had just got to a spot where the ground was getting a lot steeper when I heard a yell. I thought it was my father-in-law, so I yelled back, "Yeah!" Then the yell comes again, only louder. I can't understand what was said, so I head towards where he should be. The yell comes again. I'm thinking he fell and hurt himself or something. I soon find him and say, "What's up?" He said he thought it was me yelling. Then it comes again. He said, "I'll work my way down to the rig and see if it's the girls." I said, "It don't sound like them, but I'll go back down to the creek and see if I can find them." We separate, and now the yelling is coming pretty regular. I get back down in the bottom, and the yell is echoing all around me. I can't see anything, and can't figure where it is coming from. So I started towards where the girls should be. Unknown to me, they heard the yelling, got scared, and were already at the pickup. I'm working my way down the draw, trying to see what's making those noises. It was almost like a moose call, but different. It was really eerie and would stand the hair on your neck right up. This continues till I get down to the pickup about 20 minutes later. I walk out of the trees, and here's everyone else looking for me. The yelling is still echoing down the draw, and they are like, "What the hell is that?" They asked if I had seen what it was. I told them I didn't, but it seemed to be following me down the draw. I was just staying out of sight. I asked, if now that we have everyone accounted for, do they want to go see if we can find it? They all said no, pretty much at the same time. I told them I don't think it's very far off. Then it all went quiet again. We all started to get ready to go. I'm looking all around, still trying to see anything, when I see it. I said, "There it is!" And all four of us see a big, dark, hairy man-looking thing crossing an open ridge several hundred yards above the draw. It was moving at a good pace and crossed an area about 75 to 100 yards across in just a few seconds. It was on two legs the entire time, and it was moving faster than I can run. I always thought there could be some truth to the Sasquatch stories, but now I know of their existence. This was my first sighting. I now have 3 sightings and several experiences. I already shared my most recent sighting on this site, and will share my second and closest sighting soon. I get a really good look at it. Follow up. Investigators report. This report involves 4 adult witnesses, all members of the same family, engaged in a coordinated deer hunt. The witnesses were separated by elevation and terrain, but remained within visual and vocal distance of one another during the event. All witnesses later observed the same subject visually. While hunting in a logged mountainous area, witnesses experienced a sudden and unnatural silence in the environment, commonly reported in high strangeness wildlife encounters. This silence was followed by repeated, powerful vocalizations described as extremely loud, echoing throughout the drainage, similar to a moose call but distinctly different, and producing intense fear and physiological reactions, hair standing up, strong sense of being watched. The vocalizations appeared responsive and intelligent, mimicking human yells and creating confusion among the hunting party. This resulted in the group unintentionally converging toward the pickup truck while the sound source maintained distance and remained concealed. The primary witness reported the vocalizations seemed to shadow his movement down the draw, remaining unseen but consistently present, suggestive of intentional positioning rather than random animal movement. After regrouping at the vehicle, all 4 witnesses observed a large, dark, hairy, human-like figure moving across an open ridge several hundred yards above their position. Observed characteristics: upright bipedal locomotion, no observed use of forelimbs for balance, extremely fast movement, estimated faster than a running human, covered approximately 75 to 100 yards in only a few seconds, maintained 2-legged movement the entire time, no visible tail, antlers, or quadrupedal motion. The subject's speed, posture, and body proportions were inconsistent with known wildlife in the region. Behavioral analysis: the prolonged vocal activity, strategic concealment, and apparent withdrawal once the witnesses prepared to leave strongly suggest escort behavior. This pattern is commonly reported in Sasquatch encounters where witnesses unknowingly enter a sensitive area such as a travel corridor, feeding zone, or habitation site. Key indicators: vocal pressure without direct confrontation, herding behavior toward a specific exit point, visual confirmation only after retreat decision, immediate cessation of activity once witnesses disengaged. Follow-up information: witnesses reported returning to the area multiple times after the incident with no further activity, supporting the theory of a temporary or seasonal use area rather than a permanent site. The primary witness later reported multiple additional encounters over the years, lending credibility to his ability to recognize anomalous behavior and distinguish it from known wildlife. Investigators' assessment: this case meets the criteria for a Class A Sasquatch encounter due to multiple independent witnesses, extended duration of activity, intelligent vocal interaction, clear visual sighting, consistency with known Sasquatch behavioral patterns. The Fisher Ridge drainage and surrounding mountainous terrain offer ideal conditions for sustained Sasquatch activity, including water access, cover, elevation advantage, and low human traffic, especially in the mid-1980s. Case status: closed, credible. Threat level: low, non-aggressive territorial warning behavior. Recommendation: archive as a reference case for escort and vocalization behavior in northwestern Montana. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Squatch Ranger Files. Remember, whether you're out camping, hiking, or just exploring the great outdoors, always stay alert, stay respectful, and keep those recorders ready. You never know when the next howl, knock, or footprint might show up. If you do head out on a Squatch investigation, make sure you leave no trace. We rangers take care of the woods and keep an eye out for the mysterious creatures that roam them. Until next time, this is the Squatch Ranger signing off. Stay curious, stay safe, and keep it squatchy.